Good morning, everybody. My name's Deb Noller. I'm the CEO of a company called Switch Automation. So we started here in Sydney. We're a tech company, and I'm the CEO and co-founder. I'm 54 years old, so I hardly fit what is in your mind of what a tech co-founder who's operating in San Francisco looks like. And I think that's probably the story that I wanted to share with you today, is how many of you, when you were 14 years old, felt like you just didn't feel like you looked like, or felt like the other girls in your class? So that was me. I kind of was geeky. I enjoyed reading books. The boy band of the age back then was Bay City Rollers, and all the girls, all they talked about was Bay City Rollers and these pop star icons that they had, and all I wanted to do was read books. So I'm sure that kind of resonates with a lot of you, and I think if you went back to my high school reunions, which I don't attend, by the way, but if you did, I'm sure that they would all, probably not one person would even remember who I was. So I think the underlying message that I want to bring today is that your life is your life. What you see around you and what the stereotypes and the typical expectations that society puts on you that's their business. It's up to you to own your life, and the fact that you're all here means that you're passionately interested in either science, technology, engineering or maths, and there has never been a better time for girls to love those subjects, because every single business around the world is adopting pro-diversity hiring models. They're all going for how to even up their diversity statistics. Everybody's trying to work out how to attract women into some of these careers, and so it's an incredibly exciting time for all of you. So I grew up in New Zealand, poor kid, no TV, almost, very few opportunities, but I had parents who honestly instilled in all of us children, I was the eldest of four, that anything is possible, and they led by example. So my father, when we had 4 children under 6, went back to night school and studied to become an architectural draftsman. When I was 17, he moved the family to Australia. All of that was for opportunity, and I'm happy to say that although we started my childhood poor, they now own a canal boat and swan around in France. So there's definitely something to be said for grabbing opportunities as they come up and working hard. But anyway, I grew up in New Zealand poor, and one of the things that you can do when you're poor is do a lot of outdoor activities because they're free. And so we did a lot of camping, we did a lot of walking, we did a lot of exploring in the mountains, and it instilled in me a real deep love of our environment. And I grew up in the 70s when there was no plastic. I mean, it's hard to believe these days when we buy plastic probably 10, 12 times a day, everything from the straw to the takeaway container. But back then, every bottle wasn't just recycled, it was refilled. Milk bottles, beer bottles, wine bottles, Fanta and Coke bottles, they were all washed out and refilled. There was no cans. So you can imagine in my lifetime, we've gone from this world of pristine environment to what we have today, which is by 2020, our oceans are going to have more plastic than what we have fish. So it's an incredible problem, and we need to solve that. So this is one of the problems that I've embarked on in my lifetime of journey, is how can I have some sort of impact on our environment. So I studied, my first university course out of school was at Gatton College. I studied National Parks Management. Fortunately, and this is where again, this is one of my great life lessons, sometimes the worst things that ever happen to you turn out to be the best things. So fortunately, that year, the Director of National Parks in Queensland spent the entire budget on land acquisition, so there was no jobs. Not one person in my class got a job. That actually turned out to be a good thing. It meant that I kicked around doing a couple of really terrible jobs in Brisbane. I went overseas, as any good Australian young person does, spent 7 months backpacking around Europe, came back and thought deeply about, well, okay, I need to get my life back on track. What am I going to do? I decided to enrol for a Bachelor of Business. I fell in love on the same day that I was about to start university, so moved my university course from Brisbane. I was going to go to QUT to JCU. Again, very fortuitous decision, because JCU, this is in Townsville, very small university. they threw all of the accounting students in with the computer science students, so we ended up doing the exact same stream of computer science as all of the computer science students. I fell in love with it on day one, and I followed that through as a major. So an absolute series of accidents, and sometimes that's what life gives you. In 1989, I started my first computer science course in the Queensland government, and actually I was surrounded by women. So the whole women in technology problem was not a problem in 1989 and 1990. That became a problem throughout the 90s when the whole programmer culture came in with the gaming and the graphical user interfaces. But my husband was in property, and we got transferred to Cairns, and everybody knows Cairns is the computer science capital of the world. So I went there fully expecting to have an enormous career. I was having my second baby and thought that I was going to be a stay-at-home mum. But I found a computer programming job in a local business there, and I met who is still today my co-founder. So this is John. He and I just hit it off from day one, and we both had a severe, serious dislike of the person that we were working for. I left to have a baby, and then 3 months later, John knocked on my door and said, let's go into business together. And I said, sure, why not? Let's do that. We started a business which was tracking materials for the mining companies operating in Indonesia, and it was phenomenally successful. So this was, again, a series of accidents, but worked hard, really took advantage of our opportunities. Talk about being a female in an all-male environment. Talk about that. Go up to Irian Jaya in the middle of the jungle where you're surrounded by men, and I was literally the only woman there, certainly the only working one. But we worked really, really hard, and we created this phenomenally successful business. It was so successful that I actually hated it, because what we'd done is we'd created a business that nowadays you would call it a consulting business. The only way you could get bigger was to hire more people. And so I realised early on, and same as I think it was Lynette, I'm also the daughter of a builder, and it's incredible how many people decide to become entrepreneurs. There's 3 or 4 in my business actually who are sons and daughters of builders, and it's a really a good starting point. Anyway, we decided that we would crash that business and start it again, but build it with technology rather than with people. And we relocated that business to Sydney right in time for the dot-com bust. So that basically killed any prospects we had of building that business. So then we just spent a couple of years kicking around. I took a job at E-Trade. I was doing their portfolio management tools. But somebody was bringing a product in from the US for doing home automation, and they didn't have the local drivers written for the C-bus lighting system. So by another series of accidents, we got involved in that, and John particularly was really excited about this machine-to-machine stuff. You know, you can make a security system talk to a lighting system. So we built a business that was in high-end homes, and then we did a series of pivots because we realised that even though the high-end home market was good, you're really basically just building technology for rich boys and their toys. And it's even though the technology is scalable, the actual market is not very scalable. So we pivoted into apartments. We're doing a lot of work with Lendlease doing their Green Star apartments. And then we pivoted again when we realised that the cloud was going to dramatically change the entire industry. So we actually threw everything out, started all over again, and rebuilt it all into the cloud, and then targeted the enterprise. So we now have customers like Wells Fargo, Walmart, the Microsoft retail stores, Oxford Properties. So we have over 8,000 buildings on our platform, and what we're doing is we're helping people to manage those buildings much more sustainably than what they are now, and we're doing that by bringing data into their lives, because right now they're doing a lot of it from spreadsheets. So I just wanted to leave you, so you'll see from my story that you will start your careers and you will have, some of you will have very highly defined ideas of where you're going to go, and that's great. I'm not challenging that at all. Some of you, however, will just follow a love of a subject, and that is perfectly fine. And there's going to be these amazing opportunities that come up, and you're going to make a decision one day, the left fork or the right fork, and before you know it, you're going to end up in these great places. But if you work really hard and take advantage of these opportunities, then you can really create an exciting career for yourself. So some of the advice that I have for you, if any of you are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, and it seems like these days everybody's going to become an entrepreneur. So firstly, and I think that went back to Tara's thing, is know your customer and set out to solve the problem for your customer. So it's understand the problem from your customer's perspective and try and solve that problem from their perspective. So that's the first thing, and what she said about revenue is absolutely true, and particularly for women entrepreneurs. It's really hard to raise capital, and it doesn't matter what you read in the paper. That's like 1% of all entrepreneurs. 1% of entrepreneurs raise capital, and most of those are 24-year-old graduates from Stanford or Harvard or MIT. The fact is most of us will have a really hard job raising capital, and so you're much better off getting to revenue as soon as you can. And the faster you get to revenue, the more likely it is that you will raise capital. Build your network early. There's a lot of really valuable networks, and what I've found is tapping into those networks, you'll find no shortage of people who genuinely want to help you. So I'm part of 3 or 4 women's networks, Springboard, Heads Over Heels, Scale Investors, and sorry, the other one's eluding me. Anyway, it'll come back to me in a second. But the main thing is get involved in networks, and those networks could be whatever, but you just get involved in them because you'll find that people are really happy to help. Think big. Most women have this problem of thinking about solving a problem in their local backyard. Don't think like that. Think globally. Think, how can you take this problem, and from day one, think about how you can create a global business. It's the #1 problem that Springboard get frustrated with, is that women think about local businesses when we should all be thinking about how we create a global business. Embrace risk and failure. You're going to fail, big deal. So what? That's what innovating is. Innovation means there's an element of risk, there's an element of failure, and you have to realise that. And sometimes you're going to have a business that fails. It doesn't matter. In America, that's almost a badge of honour. Here we sort of treat it as, oh, well, I'll give up now and I'll go back and I'll get another job. No, don't do that. Like, just take the learnings from everything that you do and feed that back into the next thing. And mostly, and this is, I guess, my #1 message out of today's talk, is just really know and own your own journey. And so what? You're going into a male-orientated environment. It's too bad. That's their problem, not yours. You own and deserve your right to be here, so own and deserve your right to be here. Just own it. And don't even double question that. Just accept it. Accept that this is your journey, accept that some days are going to be easy and some days are hard. And that's for everybody, you know, and I mean, yeah, we're women, so what? That would be my advice to you, is get on with it. There's just some slides here at the end, but I'm not going to talk about them. The last one is Australia is really supportive of innovation. We have, you know, a really strong culture here amongst the government grants and organisations. This year I got $918,000 back from the tax office in an R&D tax credit. So know what's available to you, really investigate those things and take advantage of them because they're there. And the other thing is, if you're going into an enterprise environment, you'll often find people within the enterprise that have the check writing power to be able to back small bits of innovation. And if you get one of those clients, just love them to death. And then lastly, take control of your future. And I just want to call out Kate here. Kate is a Bachelor of Maths and Biotechnology. She's also from Cairns, Computer Science and Mathematics Capital of the World. And I know Kate through a family connection, and 3 years ago, Kate was working at a jewellery company in Queen Street Mall. And I said, Kate, you have a maths degree. You actually have the most employable skills on the planet right now. Data scientists in the USA are earning $250,000 per annum. And Kate started working with us about 3 years ago as an intern. She's done a few stints in the US and a few stints here. She's probably the person with the highest raw IQ in the entire company, and she is totally owning her role in our company, and I think she's an absolute great role model for all of you here. So that's it. Thank you.